G'day, Aussie Bonsai Bloke. Yeah, how you going? G'day guys. Well, today we're going to put our Chinese elm into apparently an antique Chinese pot. So there you have it. So the Chinese elm was a finished-ish type tree. All on this side here was finished and this side was the same, and it was a bull. And I didn't like the fact that it was quite stagnant and a dome. So in the middle of the dome I grew a couple of big fat branches that I let grow really strong, and then one day I chopped the whole rest of the dome off, which showed these branches that were in here. And now I'm in the process of growing and wiring and training these branches up to become other trunks, and then we'll have a layer of canopy here and then a higher canopy over here, and then that will create a little bit more interest in it rather than just a standard pom-pom on top. It'll be a bit more interesting, and I'll have little bits of foliage that jut in and out around the place as well. But first, let's get onto this pot. It's apparently an antique Chinese pot that I bought. I paid good money for it, $350. I don't know. Not really a full-on ring to it. No marks on it. I'll bring it up a bit closer. So who knows? Maybe I got ripped off. Maybe not. I mean, it could be an antique pot, just not a very good quality pot. Just because antique doesn't mean it's good quality. Okay, so there's no maker mark. There's a blob of something in here. I assume it's been fired because that is glaze. No maker's mark. Pot has a bit of a warped bum on it, so it could be antique, but maybe a backyard job. What else? Oh, it's had its feet ground off with an angle grinder to make it sit flat, because it didn't sit flat. And now if I look at it from the top, I can see this side's smushed in and these sides come out. It's not quite square, not quite true, it's sort of smushed. So I don't know if you can pick that up on camera, but I can see it with the naked eye. It's smushed. So who knows? Does that add to it or not? Who knows? I suppose as long as I'm happy with it, whatever. Got some weird things on the front, but I guess, you know, when I looked at it, I liked the look of it and thought, why not? And I was persuaded into it because it was an antique pot. So here we have it. We're going to put this Chinese elm in, see how we go. So today we're just going to run through repotting it. Even the bottom's like twisted, not just up and down, but the whole pot's actually twisted. Anyway, doesn't matter. Alright, I'll bring you guys back. We got another small issue going on here. If you notice this Chinese elm, on the finished branches on this side, where I've got all the twigginess, that side of the tree actually looks different to this side now. You know, obviously one side's got twigs, one side doesn't. But it also looks different, as in, because my style is slowly changing with the Australian natives. Don't need these sunnies anymore. Because my style is slowly changing with the Australian natives and trying to make more upright trees. This side is all the branches and trunks, multi-trunks really in there, all going up and then out with side branching. And even the side branching is sort of going up and then out, and more acute angles. And then I come back to this side, the original side, And I see flat pads here. So flat pads like the old ladder tree. So we're going to end up with two different types of trees in the one tree if we keep going like this. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to run, I already did one just as a test, pulled one up. I think we're going to pull up a heap with guide wires. They're flexible enough just, but I don't think I can repot it and leave it for another year because some of these branches won't be flexible enough. This one's already cracked through the middle, but not a big deal. It's just split in the middle of the trunk as it's twisted up and around. And I'm just going to lift some of these things up, create a bit more interest. Some of them are nearly stuck, but I'll lift what I can just to keep things, maybe lift one up, the back one up, leave these two down. Yeah, I think I'll do that. Just create a bit more volume in the pads and a little bit more randomness, and then hopefully it'll tie in with this side over here when that's done. And in future I'll pick out more branches that go up and down and all over the place to try and fill this side in. So I'm going to run some guide wires, pretty simple, tube at each end, find the one you want to pull, put a bit of plastic tube around your wire, pull it up, hook it onto a top branch, tighten it up, and then we leave it there for a year, good year. So I'll get onto that. I'll do the guide wires and then we'll get back to the repotting. I'll show you also that deciduous trees are starting to bud here. So let's bring you up close on that one. So even though we're only a month after the shortest start of the year, stuff's already starting to bud. So you can see that, buds coming out. Especially on where the hard cuts were done. You can see buds coming out. But even on little branches like this, going to be not long and it'll be in full leaves. So ideal time to repot. Yeah, deciduous, just get in there and let's get going on it. I'll try to get this video out pretty soon and not too late, otherwise it won't make sense for the timing. You can see that branch got a random strip down there. It was a straight boring piece and I thought, oh, I'll just strip a bit of wood out and see what it looks like. So created a bit of damage. But yeah, you can see more upright, more outward. But it'll make sense. Alright guys, not sure if you can notice, the changes will be subtle, but I've got this one up, which I had before, but now I've got this one up, one here, another one here, this one up here, another one pulled up here, another one pulled across to fill in a hole that was here, this one pulled up, that one pulled in, one at the back here pulled up just to create some more spread. So basically what you're doing, if you've got a flat pad, every second one you pull up creates more volume, or you could do every second one that way. My fingers don't really want to go like that, but anyway, so it does create more volume in the branches and makes it, I think, look a bit natural, a bit more natural rather than flat pads. So I hope you can see it sort of makes it look a bit more fuller. You can't really go flying through there or put a sheet of paper in there now, whereas before you could in this branch and a couple of the other branches. Now you really can't. And these ones here are fine, they're growing up and out. They just need to develop. As far as developing it in this pot, it'll be fine. It's actually slightly more volume than this one all up, or similar, anyway, very similar. So let's get out the pot and let's do the main event. I'll get rid of this Chinese pot. I think it's antique. Whether or not the quality is good, who knows? Who knows? Anyway, let's get it out of here. Let's see if I've tied it in. Knowing me, I highly doubt it. No, I haven't. But I've actually tied in my drainage screens. That's something different. Actually, so long ago that the copper looks like it could have corroded, or was it aluminium? Don't know. But stuff doesn't look that great in there. Right, let's pull it out. You probably should get in the habit of tying in your trees. I tend to tie in only ones that don't have many roots. If they've got plenty of roots and they're quite flat on the bottom after I cut them with the saw, well then I'm probably more inclined not to tie it in, because of the simple fact that it's going to sit pretty flat and pretty hard to blow that over. But true, if you did tie it in, you got less chance of breaking the little roots that are trying to grow and establish in your new pot. So there we go, there's that one. Definitely not a ceramic, she's a plastic, but decently real for a plastic tub. Okay, I'm going to keep that plastic tub for my peppercorn tree, which I'm going to repot very soon. Now, what mix did I use for this? Looks like I used just a standard, probably succulent mix. You can see already there's new roots coming. Little white feeder roots starting to grow. So she's on the move. And she looks decently healthy. So, all of these tied in screens are now stuck to the tree, and you can see there definitely is gravelly stuff in there. I think it's probably a succulent mix I used for it. Anyway, we're not here for that. What am I going to do now? Well, let's chop the bottom off, chop a bit of the sides off, and get it in the new pot. So, first thing, let's get an old saw. Alright, we've got a saw. What I'm going to do is, I'm literally just going to take a slice off the bottom of this tree. Probably take a third. You can see there, that line, probably roughly a third. I'm just going to chop it off. Try and keep a nice straight line. There we go. Cut into a couple of strongish roots in there, but not too bad. Try not to grab the trunk if you've got decent bark starting to form. Grab some of the branches where it's a bit smoother without the old bark. You can see it's got rid of a decent slab of roots there. So I'll just chuck that one outside and come back. It's a lot shallower already. Alright, let's get rid of this top. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to get rid of the top. Then I'm going to cut the sides off a little bit, all the way around. And then I'm just going to get the high pressure cleaner out on it and just high pressure clean the top and the sides of this root ball, just to wash some of this old crappy dirt out. And so we can see what sort of root system we're actually dealing with in here. Problem is, if you don't have a really inorganic mix, or at least a really free draining one, which will be my plan for the future. So I'll just show you future plan. Okay, everything's going to be in this free draining mix. But for now, a lot of my trees are coming out of stuff that's, you know, fair soggy mess. And the problem with that is to try and get a root hook into this soggy mess and to make sense of this with a root hook is very hard and bloody messy. You end up with crap all over yourself, all over the table, everywhere. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to high pressure clean it. Ow. As best I can, and then we're going to repot it into the new pot in some free draining mix. So I'm just going to go around the edges and just cut a bit off. Take a slice of cake, as they say. Now I'm not really taking all this extra off so that it'll fit into the new pot. The new pot is actually similar size to that plastic training pot that it was already in. I'm doing it just to promote new growth in the roots, so it stimulates a bit of new growth by being cut back and hurt, which will then make it divide. Make the roots divide now. And grow into the new soil in the new pot. Now, the new pot is going to look a little bit big for it, but bear in mind we're going to have this side branch here, which is going to become, or side trunk, which is going to become a full canopy out here. Whether or not this is going to be the front right here, I'm not quite decided. It looks kind of cool from here. I'm just worried that from here, this branch at the top here, I'll spin it, the most dominant one here, will then be going backwards away from you. And it is at the top and the most dominant one. Yes, we can bring some of these up a bit higher, and this one here is pretty dominant anyway. But yeah, it's going to be a bit of a decision. The thing is, if that's not going to be the front on the other side, then the other front will probably be I would say here somewhere, with a canopy here, canopy there. And that's almost dead 180 to the other side, so it'll actually be potted. I'm pretty happy with its potting angle. It's going to actually be potted pretty much, so you can either look at it from this side here or from the other side over there. And I think I'll make that final decision. Well, I don't have to make it because both sides of the pot are going to be the same, but I'm going to make that final decision as it all starts to fill in and grow as to which side I would like to show, you know, on a bench or in a display. But for now, luckily it's both at 180 of each other and any can be the front. So because of that angle, I might have to chop a bit of this corner off because it's the wide bit's now becoming part of the front, which means to cut this bit off, we're just going to put the saw through here. Now bear in mind, this is deciduous, very hardy tree, so you don't need to worry too much about taking a bit off. But keep in mind what species of tree that you're actually dealing with, because some trees won't appreciate losing this many roots. This one here, couldn't care less, I wouldn't have thought. Alright, we'll get rid of this mess outside. Right, let's just clean up, get rid of this mess. Only problem with repotting, it's very messy. Some people say therapeutic getting your hands on the soil, but I don't know. I call it messy. Can't touch anything. Can't do anything with your hands. You can't have a drink, nothing. Just plain old messy. Right, I'm going to take it out to the high pressure cleaner. When I come back, we should see some of the surface roots on this, if there is any, and a bit of the side roots. And any of the bigger side roots that have been damaged with the saw, we'll just chop back with the snips and make a nice, neat, clean cut. Because what happens, the reason I do it with a saw at the start is because what happens, people, if you don't use high pressure clean, just comb them out by hand, comb them out, comb them out. One, it takes you probably an hour to comb them out, maybe longer. And then once people have combed them out, sat there combing them out, and they got all these long roots hanging out, what do anyway? They come along and they just chop it off back to here anyway. So why not just skip that whole step? You've taken no extra roots off than you would have anyway if you combed them all out. And yeah, it just saves a lot of time and effort. And now I can go in there and tease out the sides a little bit, just so that it's got, you know, the new mix can mix in a bit with some of the old mix. High pressure cleaner won't get all of it out. I don't intend on bare rooting it completely. I intend on leaving some of the bottom intact just for the health of the tree. Right, I'll come back when this is all clean. Good day guys, welcome back. Well, is that going to be the front of it? No. I just want to show you these roots. This is pretty typical of a Chinese elm. They have fairly grotesque sort of roots. Probably a bit like a crepe myrtle. Really thick, coarse roots. So what we want to do now, just go along and do some reasonably clean cuts on some of these really rough saw marks. Now I did see some white on the edge of this pot. I believe this has probably got very minute start of an infestation of your good old root aphids, or possibly it could be mycelium or whatever it's called. Who knows? But I suspect root aphid. You can see some of these coarse, crazy roots. This is Chinese elm, and this is why they get a great reputation if you plant one in your garden, which I have done, of putting out root suckers everywhere, and then new trees grow everywhere from the root suckers because they have these crazy roots. Do not plant one too close to your house or in a garden bed where you're hoping to grow your flowers and you don't want to have the ongoing maintenance of killing out any new Chinese elm that grow. Because where you plant one, you'll end up with 101. And if you try and dig one of those out and leave a few roots behind, guess what? They all grow from roots. You can grow Chinese elm from root cutting. So just keep that in mind if you want to plant one in your garden. Having said all that, I've planted some and I think they make a beautiful tree. Absolutely stunning tree, nice shade tree, and I'm happy to put up with a few. I dig every now and then to get rid of stuff that's coming up. Right, so that's pretty much just cleaned up some of the rough saw marks. You can see bottom's the same. It's literally just a big tangle of fat roots. What you could do too, this is going into a bigger pot, so it's going to have plenty of room to grow. But I will show you a bit of a technique on a tree that's like this, really aggressive, and it's very hard to get in there. Trying to rake that out, you would need a rake that's about 20 mil thick, otherwise you'd bend it. But what you can do, you can take these what they call wedge cuts out. So what you can do is you can cut a wedge towards the trunk a bit and chop out a wedge. You can come along here and chop out a wedge, and you just do that around the whole tree. Pretty much every time you repot, and every time you do it will probably be in a different spot. Very unlikely you'll do a wedge in the same spot. Next time you do it in a different spot, and it means that over time you're constantly replacing them root systems without having to cut it all back to nothing, which would stress the tree out too much and your spring growth will be too weak. So there you go, but I'm going into a massive pot, so I don't really care. I think I've chosen this as the front roughly because I want to be able to see a lot of this secondary trunk, and this makes it out really powerful and strong. If I was to turn it around to that way, one, this is leaning back slightly, but not too bad, not a concern. More the fact that from there it starts to hide this secondary trunk and put it in the back, and I want that to be quite dominant as well. So I'm now going to spin it around that way, but over time as it develops, well, like I say, the 180 side of that is the other front, so not a big deal. Right, let's get this pot ready. You'll also notice with this cheap Chinese pot, my antique pot, which could be a bloody good pot, I don't know, but I doubt it, is it's got quite small drain holes. So anyway, that's fine. I'm just going to put a bit of mesh over each one. And I thought, just because it's an expensive pot and this tree is really developing along nicely, I'll be nice and I'll actually tie these in with guide wires. But, well, because I can't tie the tree in because there's no actual tie-ins either, so there's no extra holes for a tie-in. Yes, I could use this. There's other ways around it. You can tie a bit of bamboo across the bottom through the hole, and then tie a bit of wire onto the bamboo. All of that sort of stuff. If if you want to be specialised with it all. But I am literally just going to lay them on the bottom like that. I will cut a little piece of wire just to hold them in, just for now. So I will go ahead and cut a little piece of wire, bend them at right angles. Poke them at the bottom. Poke him at the bottom and just go like that. That's it. That's all I'm doing. It's as much as I'm putting in, and then look, it's fine. It's in there. It's as fancy as, that's as fancy as Aussie Bonsai Bloke gets. Guys, you know, if I get a really nice tree one day out of my collection, I'm hoping one day I might, then you know what? I will put in the effort to tie it into the pot really nicely. But at the moment, most of my trees, or all of my trees, are training. Some are just sticks. So I have sticks, some in training. And the ones that are almost finished, well, they've been almost finished in the pot they're in, so they never had to be tied in anyway. Anyway. One day when I get some nice trees, I'll go to the effort of tying them in. So there you go. How's that? Right, let's pile up the bottom of the pot. We'll just place the tree in there and see what sort of height we want it to finish at. I want this one to be pretty level. I don't want it to be mounded up. Don't want it to be mounded up. So, and I probably want it to lean, well, we have it to the left and then hang out that way, or do we have it hanging over to the right of the pot and then that way? I kind of like that. Oh, hang on, come back. Come back, you can't see because I've been too close. There you go. Right, so now let's see the final height. The final height's pretty good there with only a thin layer of potting soil underneath. Just got to work out what angle we want it at. If that's going to be the front, and I want this trunk to almost be slightly in front of this other main trunk, I want this secondary trunk to actually be in front of it. And on this secondary trunk there's actually about 3 trunks. I want that to slightly be in front, so I think I'm going to angle it about there. Question is, do I want it that side of the pot? Do I want it that side of the pot? Do I want to angle it that way a bit? Which can be done. Or do we just seriously just like that way? Hard to say, isn't it? I will say, actually I will say guys, scrap everything I've said. I'm an idiot. I will say, angling it that way, if you see the line of the bottom, pretty much all of it's out there apart from that one main one at the back. So it's making me the idea that maybe this secondary one we can make more dominant by, in the future, bringing more branches out further out here over this next year. Or even chopping this one completely off here. But I think for now, I reckon something like that. And this will be the front. Yeah. I think something like that. And then if that's the front on that side, back will look like that. Yeah, I do think that side's uglier. Now doing that, I do actually think this side deserves to be the back. But still not bad. Still not a bad option. I feel like spinning it around one day. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pile up slightly. Although, as you guys just saw, the height of it is not bad how it was just then. So I'm not going to pile up bugger all. I just want to fill the whole bottom of the pot. Put a slight mound in the middle. Now back to our planting angle that we liked. Was over that side of the pot. And slanted that way a little bit. So that trunk will actually be slightly behind, but around enough that we can make it a reasonably dominant part of the final finished tree. So there you go. I reckon that is not bad. Let's wriggle it in at that. We want the top of the roots to be pretty much level with the pot in this one. There's enough, well and truly enough room in that pot for it to be pretty level. So now let's just fill her up. As you can see, it's going to have a fair bit of bloody soil to grow into, which will hopefully make it absolutely go bonkers this summer. Which means by the end of this summer, we'll have cut it back several times, and we'll be getting somewhere close by the end of one more growing season of something that's starting to look pretty decent. I doubt the winter silhouette's going to look that good next winter. It definitely doesn't now. I think next winter it'll still be a little bit sparse. But I think maybe in 2 winters' time, she's going to actually create a pretty good winter silhouette as well. But I think by the end of this summer, with leaves on, it'll actually start to look like something decent. So I'm just going to go around pushing with my fingers. I can feel my wedge cuts here that I cut, and I'm making sure I fill them up with my fingers. You can go around the whole tree and do that if you've got it, if you're putting it into a smaller pot and you want a bit of room for new roots to grow and you want to get rid of some of the old soil. By all means, go there and do some wedge cuts like that, and over time you'll replace the old root ball. Probably next time I repot this, I'll definitely be doing some big wedge cuts throughout the whole thing. Now, I don't know how the planting is meant to go in these pots that are a bit too big, but I've actually got it in the back of the pot a little bit. So there's going to be a nice big area in front of the tree, which might kind of look cool with all the moss. We'll see how it goes. Give us a heap of room to be able to moss it right up. Alright, so there we go, we've done that section. I think last step is let's get some moss on this beauty. Yeah. Let's moss it up. Now when you high pressure clean it too, just be really careful on the trunk. Whenever I went past the trunk, I held the wand back a long way, so I just cleaned off the dirt and not the bark. And then the roots, I got it in a lot closer and hit it harder. But when you're in close, don't go up on the trunk because you'll rip all the bark off. I probably did rip a little bit off anyway, but I don't think too bad. Okay, let's moss her up. Here's some moss I just got from the front garden, and I'm literally just going to go around here on the front driveway. I've got it, and I'm just going to plonk her in, squish it in really hard, do chunks around the place, a few different bits. Until we've mossed up the whole surface. I'm a pretty big believer in mossing up my trees. I just love mossing them up. Looks good, keeps the moisture in, and when it gets watered, or when you water it by hand, if that's how you water, makes the whole surface a bit more stable, less prone to washing away, you know. Just try and find some different bits and pieces. Just plonk them in. Alright, I'll go around, moss up the whole thing. You know, getting moss out of the driveway, is it a good idea? Well, kind of, but kind of not. Because it can have weed seeds in there. It means that your moss will potentially grow weeds, and then you have to be on it to try and get rid of the weeds. I find a lot of my weeds seem to come from the actual bonsai area, in the form of that bloody Irish moss and liverwort. But you know, if you're on your trees all the time, every time you walk past, you can pick it off and try and clean it up. It's a bit of a pain. What I generally do is, when things start to look too messy again, with weeds or liverwort or Irish moss, generally that's the time that you'll see me ripping the surface off and just remossing it. Even if I'm not repotting, I'll remoss it. So yeah, just put random chunks around the place. Squash the edges in really firm. And when I say really firm, like, I'm putting a lot of pressure on my fingertips to really push it in there. Because if you just sit it on top, at least for a while, when you water, it'll lift the edges up. And if not water it clean out the pot, it'll lift the edges up, and then the edges will dry out, and you'll come back in a few days and your moss job will look pretty ordinary. But if you push it down pretty hard like this and keep it quite wet for the first few days, your moss job shouldn't really have any drying out or any issues that make it look, you know, bad at all. You just keep going like that. The only thing I will say, if you've got blackbirds, good luck. Good luck. I used to have blackbirds really bad, and they're an absolute pain. Unless you put your bonsai in a netted area where the birds can't get to them, they're a pain. You can just do a really nice moss job, come back the next day, and those blackbirds have just ripped up the whole damn lot. And I don't know what you do then. Go out there with a slug gun or something and just have a bit of practice. I don't know. In the past, I used to peg pretty much this gutter guard down, and I would just take strips and peg it to the top of your soil. It would let enough sun that the moss would grow nice through and under it, and then you still get the same effect of the moss cooling the surface and keeping it moist. And when you wanted to show it or put it on the bench, if you have a party, you can take that off and expose your moss, and that's not a bad way of doing it. So that's an option. A bit of a pain, but what do you do when you've got blackbirds? Alright, I'm going to finish mossing the whole thing, and then we'll have a bit of a look at the end and call her done. Cheers. Alright guys, I hope I edited most of that dribbling out. Here we are, she's potted up, she's mossed up. We'll give you a final spin of the tree. The pot at the moment is too big, I know, but when this side fills out, and it's got to fill out a little bit more, but not too much, hopefully it won't look too bad. If it does, we'll swap it out later. No worries. Final spin on the way out. Cheers for watching Aussie Bonsai Bloke. And enjoy your bonsai. Go out and enjoy your trees. And if you've got a mate that does bonsai, even better. Get out there and relax, work on your trees. No worries. Cheers for watching. And I hope I didn't bore you too much. Enjoy the rest of your day.